Then yes, we can definitely do it.
So good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining today. Today is our second webinar from this virtual series on applying to graduate school. And we are going to be talking with Brandeis International Business School. Before I introduce our guest of honor and the amazing topic we're going to be learning from today, I would like to tell everyone about Education USA a little bit, okay? So as you can read here, my name is Naomi Lauseker. I am an Education USA advisor here in Paraguay, and I am joined in this call today by my colleague Sandra Sanabria. She's also an Education USA advisor. My office is located in Ciudad del Este, inside the National University of the East, so the Universidad Nacional del Este, inside the Rectorado of the university. And Sandra's office is located in Asunción, inside the CCPA. And she works there alongside our senior advisor, Mrs. Veronica Visser. And we also have one more office in Paraguay that is located inside the National University of Asunción, so the Universidad Nacional de Asunción, in San Lorenzo, inside the main library of the university. And there works our colleague, Angie Hara. And we will leave all of our email accounts and addresses on the chat box, so you can email us if you have any questions, or if you would like to have the recording of today's webinar. We would also be very happy to send those your way. And about Education USA, we are an organization, a network from the US Department of State with over 430 offices and advising centers around the world. We are located in around 175 countries and territories. And our organization, this network, works to promote US higher education to students around the world. And we are happy to do it here for our Paraguayans, friends and students. And we want to offer every student the opportunity to learn about US higher education. And we do that by offering accurate, comprehensive, and current information about the opportunities to study at accredited institutions in the United States. So as our tagline says, Education USA is your official source on US higher education. And with that being said, I would like to introduce finally our guest of honor. He is Mark Kahn, and he is the Associate Director of Admissions from Brandeis International Business School. So Mark, thank you very much for being with us today, and the floor is yours.
Thank you. It's my pleasure to be here. I will also add my own personal plug for the work of Education USA. I've met many wonderful colleagues throughout the years working in admissions that really do have the best interests of students at heart. So I appreciate the work that you folks are doing as well. So as Naomi mentioned, my name is Mark Kahn. I am one of the Associate Directors of Admission at Brandeis International Business School. Tonight, my plan is for us to go through some of the nuances when you're looking at business school. What are some of the things that you want to identify? And then we'll talk a little bit about some of the specific programs that we offer. And finally, we'll get into a little bit of information on scholarship opportunities, because obviously the cost of education is great, but someone has to pay for it. So we want to make sure that you have the knowledge and the wherewithal to navigate those processes as they come up. So let's jump into what you should be looking for. So one of the benefits of a business school education is getting an analytical advantage. And one of the things that our programs provide are technical and analytical skills that will help students differentiate themselves in an ever-competitive job market. We prepare students for careers in certain arenas, and when you're looking at business schools, you want to make sure that what you would like to study is something that's being offered by the institution. So you'll notice that we have programs in business and finance, in data, in economics, in marketing, and in real estate. If your interest lies in something outside of this realm, you should still talk to either an admissions counselor or someone at Education USA to make sure you're finding the right programs for you. We also have access to a lot of amazing technology. We have a Bloomberg Business and Economics Lab right in our campus. Obviously, amidst everything that's going on in the rest of the world, our campus is currently closed. We are offering hybrid courses. So some of these facilities, students are not actually physically in the area to utilize. But when you're looking at a business school, you want to make sure that the opportunities to learn also exist in a way that are practical, that you can parlay what you're learning there into the real world. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. But finally, what's the preparation? Well, for a lot of our students, they're looking at doing the CFA, they're looking at doing the FRM. That's something that can be very important to your future job hopes and aspirations. And finally, a lot of US programs may appear similar, but there are certain little things that differentiate them. For us, I would point out the STEM designation. For international students, when you're studying in the US, after you complete a master's degree, you're usually given 12 months to stay in the country to do what we call OPT, optional professional training. And this is an opportunity for you to put into practice what you've been working on during your academic career. Most programs will only allow students to stay for 12 months. But with the STEM designation, after that 12-month period, students can then petition for an additional 24 months, making it 36 total months that you're allowed to stay in the US to work to gain practical experience. Now, when looking at business schools, why the STEM designation would be important to you is because it gives you the opportunity to play the field in terms of finding a position that would allow you to stay in the US. But you can also move to a different company. You're not locked in, whereas in the past you were locked into that company. And you don't necessarily have to find a company that is willing to sponsor a student right away, because they'll have the opportunity to work with you for 36 months before starting that process. And for those of you that are familiar, that is a very expensive process. So for a lot of international students, that usually means that those opportunities are dried up or not extended to them. Whereas with the STEM designation, it's of benefit to both the employer and to the student. So I was mentioning sort of the experiences, because going to a business school does not just mean you are learning in the classroom. You're complementing what you're learning in the classroom with hopefully outside opportunities. So what are some of the things that a place like Brandeis offers? Well, we allow our students to participate in industry treks. These are programs where students actually visit companies and engage with our alumni. In the past, we've done these, and as the name implies, by industry. So for instance, students who are interested in finance went to New York City. Right now for this semester, these are all remote experiences, but our students are still interacting with our alumni at various companies throughout the world. In San Francisco, for instance, that would be a list that includes Google, Facebook, and Apple. In New York, that included Goldman Sachs, a few boutique firms as well. In Washington, D.C., most of our economic policy folks are there. So you're engaging, but you're also complementing your education in the classroom with real world experience. For a longer period of time, that would be something in the internship realm, where students are given experience putting into play what they're learning in the classroom. We've had students who've done internships locally, right in the Boston area, and we'll talk a little bit about what Boston has to offer. But also we've had students who've done international opportunities as well. Internships are not just limited to the Boston area, nor are they limited to just the summer, but ideally students will go to class in the fall and the spring, and then over the summer they'll take on an internship experience either in the local area or in an area that they have some interest in locating to. So for instance, we've had students who've done California. New York is very popular because we are only about 3 hours drive away from New York City. I'm partial to short flights, so it's about a 40-minute flight from Logan Airport in Boston to JFK or LaGuardia in New York City. Finally, we offer field projects where students are given a real world problem to solve. They're collaborating with actual companies, working under the tutelage of a faculty member, and they're collaborating with their peers across all of our programs to come up with effective solutions for problems that these companies are facing. While we can't disclose all of the companies because many of them have non-disclosure agreements, our students have worked with places like Santander, State Street, and a few other impressive companies in the Boston area. And we've also done some international programs as well. So we have worked with companies located in Europe and in South America as well. So when you're looking at a business program and you're determining what would be a good fit academically, also bear in mind that what you're going to be learning outside of the classroom can be very important as well. So what is it about Boston that I love? Full disclosure, I grew up in South America and then I moved to New York when I was a young child. So I have a penchant for everything New York. I'm still a Yankees fan, even though I'm surrounded by Boston Red Sox fans. But Boston and Waltham specifically have become my home. Boston is certainly a vibrant center for finance. You're going to find a lot of the big four, a lot of large firms, particularly in consulting as well. But there's also an entrepreneurial edge to the Boston area. There are a lot of fintech companies, high-tech companies, pharmaceutical companies. This is also a big hub for the healthcare industry in the US. This is one of the benefits of being in a place with as many top-notch universities as we are neighbors of. So for instance, our students do have the ability to take classes at some of our partner institutions and some of our neighboring institutions. Those include Boston College. We also include in that list Boston University, Tufts, Bentley, Babson. There are quite a few that our students can take classes at. But what that shows is there's a collegiality that I think exists in Boston in a way that it doesn't exist anywhere else. Just for perspective, in September when students move in, we usually have over 250,000 students coming from all over the country and all over the world to study here. So there's an appreciation of academia, but there's also a strength in how you're learning in the classroom. And there's also a really good feel within the communities here when it comes to students that are learning at the university. One of the other benefits is an active alumni network. Students are engaging with our faculty members all the time, but your network is not just limited to faculty. There are opportunities for you to meet students who have gone through the program. Our alumni are very involved, actively engaged, but there are also many professional organizations. There are opportunities for you to go to lectures. There are opportunities for you to attend panels. Particularly now that we are remote, I think folks are seeing the benefit of having the opportunity to go to many of these things instead of just being limited by distance. So one of the benefits that I would highlight as well, what is the network going to look like? And again, you're not just in the bubble of your institution, but you're also trying to build a foundation in a city. In a place like Boston, that is quite easy to do. One of the added benefits, cultural offerings. I mentioned sports, but there are also wonderful museums here, great exposure to theater, wonderful concert venues. So you can also be a student and not a student. You're also enjoying a city. You're enjoying a new part of the world for many students for the first time. So I say that your education should also contain some moments where you're taking a break and getting away from the hustle and bustle of the classroom experience and complementing that with a little bit of what the city has to offer. So I hinted about some of the strengths of our faculty. It's amazing to know that you can network with faculty members. For a lot of students coming from other countries, this is not something that is as common as it is here. Many students may not have the opportunity to communicate with their professors or to pick their brains or to have a casual conversation. This is where I think education in the US really does shine. A lot of our students are amazed that the person they're talking to used to run a department at the Federal Reserve Bank or at the IMF. or used to hold a top position at Bain or KPMG. These are common stories that our students share. But what I also wanted to point out, and this is, I think, an indication of the strength of the Boston area, the school seals that I selected here weren't at random. These are the top institutions that our faculty members gain their PhDs at. So most of our faculty members, the number one represented school for PhDs in our faculty is MIT, Massachusetts Institute of Technology. That's followed by Harvard, Yale, Princeton, Stanford, the University of Chicago, NYU, and Boston College. So when you are looking at programs, look at the faculty, dig a little deeper into who is going to be in front of the classroom, who are you going to be learning from, and do a little investigation into what their backgrounds are, because these are the folks that will ultimately help you along with your career. It is not uncommon for students, for instance, to share stories of having a conversation with a faculty member over lunch or over coffee, and then making a phone call on behalf of that student to line up an interview for an internship or for a potential job. So that's something that you definitely would want to pay attention to as well when looking at business schools. Where are the faculty coming from? What was their education? And how can they potentially guide you to forge your own path that would be reminiscent of why you're going to business school in the first place? So I'll dig in a little to some of the programs that we offer and speak a little generally about what these degrees actually mean. A big one for a lot of students is the MBA. They know those three letters, they mean a lot, but what does that actually entail? Well, for most MBA programs, we are looking for experience. Most MBA students will have at least some professional experience. It can be as little as 2 years, it can be as many as 12 or 13 years. But ultimately, what MBA programs are looking to do is to make a student ready for senior leadership, for positions that require supervisory experience. Our program, for instance, can be done in as little as 16 months, but is usually a 2-year program. Most programs in the US are on the longer side relative to other programs throughout Europe or Canada, but we do offer a full 2-year program, but that can be shortened. And a lot of schools are allowing students to do something on the shorter side as well. So who is the ideal student that should be looking at an MBA? As I mentioned, this is someone who's looking at gaining that sort of managerial experience. They're looking to learn how to be a leader, and they have gained some experience already so that the conversations they're having in the classroom aren't theoretical, but they are also practical. So one of the benefits of an MBA is it's no longer a hypothetical conversation, but it's one that you can apply to things that you've seen. Many schools in the US employ the case method of teaching. So you're going to read studies, you're going to do case studies, and you're going to have conversations about how the decisions were made within those cases. In our MBA program, our concentrations are data analytics, finance, marketing, real estate, and strategy and innovation. When selecting a business program like an MBA, you want to make sure that if there are concentrations, they are aligned with what you want to learn. The benefit of an MBA student is that they know what they know, but they also know what they don't know. And I know that sounds like a tongue twister, but you ultimately are after knowledge that you've identified you don't have. And that's the benefit of an MBA. For our program, we enroll each fall and spring, and that's common for many of our programs. Hopping into our specialized master's programs, these are designed for students who are right on the start of their career. They are looking to differentiate themselves. They're looking to develop skill sets that others within the job market don't have. These specialized master's programs tend to be what we call pre-experience. Experience is not a requirement, and most of the students pursuing these are coming right out of undergrad. They may have 1 to 2 years of experience, but that would be pretty much the limit of their work experience. This is also something to bear in mind. Many programs will have prerequisite courses that they're expecting you to do in your undergrad career before jumping into the program. The MA, for instance, requires students to do macro, micro, and statistics. And we also require our students to do an internship, field project, or research in order to graduate. So again, when a program is building in the practical experience, it's a fantastic way for you to complement the academics as well. The concentrations in our MA, as you might imagine, focus more on economics and in finance. So if you are looking at marketing, for instance, you may want to fine tune the type of specialized master's program you're looking at to make sure that they cover those. We also have a business analytics program. I think these are the newest programs to have launched in a lot of business schools. Much more focused, much more concentrated in business analytics. So if you're thinking that your future involves big data, this is a program that can be done full-time in 12 or 16 months. You'll notice that the prerequisite is statistics. We do not require students to have any computer science backgrounds or computer programming under their belt before starting the program. But like many other students applying, a lot of students like ours will take either Coursera or will do a MOOC or something that will show that they have that level of experience as well. A lot of students are also just genuinely curious. If you're thinking of a business analytics program and you have the opportunity to take R, for instance, either as an academic course or just for fun, which I know not everyone sees big data as fun, but some people do, then that's something that you may want to consider doing as well. Taking a prep course just to see if it's a good fit. I also would recommend that if you are thinking of a specialized master's program in something like business analytics, that you learn the lexicon, you learn how to talk about it, you learn a little bit more about the industry itself, because these are things that set students apart in the application process. We also have a Master's of Science in Finance. This is geared primarily to those students who know their career is going to be in finance. There may be some wavering in terms of what aspects of finance they want to learn, but they know they're going to have a career in the financial industry. Our concentrations for the MSF program are asset management, corporate finance, fintech, risk, and transfer pricing and valuation. So again, when specialized programs like this focus on specific areas, you know you're getting additional depth to your degree program. You also know that if there is something that you want to study, if it falls within that concentration, you're going to get exactly what you're looking for, which is a foundation of all finance, but then you build on that to specialize and sort of stand out in the crowd. Finally, a lot of schools like Brandeis offer dual degree options where you can combine two different programs and complete them in far fewer credits than would be needed to do the full programs. For us, those combinations are our MSF MBA, our MSBA MBA. Again, because both of those programs are affiliated with the MBA program, we do require work experience. Although for undergrads, it's far less if you're coming right out of undergrad. So I'll talk a little bit about that later. And finally, we do have an MSBA MA. There is a data analytics concentration in the MA program, but the MSBA MA is meant for those students who know they want to dig a little deeper and are fully committed to being in a position that requires advanced data analytics knowledge. So a little bit of our application requirements, and I'll tell you why I'm going through this after we're done. So we look for, obviously, the substance of your application. We look for transcripts from all the schools that you have attended. This includes if you've taken a Coursera and you would like us to count that towards some of our prerequisites, or if you've done study abroad at another school, or even if you've done a summer program. These are very important for us, and we ask for unofficial transcripts. If they are coming to us in a foreign language, we just ask for an official, either university translation, or you can go through WES or something to that effect. But for the most part, your universities are more than willing to translate transcripts into English. For the prerequisites, we do ask on our application, what course have you taken that will fulfill these? We want to make sure that the prerequisites are addressed. We ask for 2 letters of recommendation, one from a professor and one from an internship supervisor or someone that has worked with you on the corporate or professional side. If that person doesn't exist, if you didn't do any internships or if you work in a lab, for instance, under the tutelage of a faculty member, that would be fine as well. In the event that you don't have that, you can send us 2 letters from faculty members because we know not all students have the work experience component or an internship experience. We look at your essays with a fine-tooth comb because we're trying to learn a lot more about you. Make sure you answer the question that we're asking. I know it seems silly, but a lot of students love to repurpose a personal statement or a piece that they've written for another school, and they sometimes fall short of actually answering the questions that we ask. So make sure you're answering the essay question that's offered to you. While it can be flattering to use our website to tell us about our own program, that's not what we're after. We also use plagiarism software, so if you are copying from different sources, we will be able to tell. Again, you want to present yourself in the best light possible, and we are very much fans of original thought. So make sure that the words that you're using in your essay are your own, and make sure it's your ideas that are being presented on the table and not someone else's. We also incorporate a video essay component to our application. The video essay can feel intimidating, but I feel like more and more schools are doing this. We ask you to answer a few questions, 2 questions, depending on the program, and they range. We record ourselves asking these questions. We give you some time to respond, and then you record yourself responding. But what are we after when we're looking at the video essay? Well, we're looking at your communication skills. We are looking at how you present. How will you fit in? How will you be in a group project? Those are, again, very important pieces as well. So we want to make sure that we're getting the full package and the full idea. And the problem is, unfortunately, we can't interview everyone that we would like to. We certainly can't interview all of our applicants, but the video essay gives us some more insight into who you are and the personality that just doesn't come across with the written word. We ask for you to submit a resume as well. For the MBA, we look for 2 years of work experience. For the other programs, work experience is not necessary. And for the dual programs, we will count internship experiences towards that as well, because again, we realize that some students don't necessarily have work experience before starting a specialized master's program. Standardized testing is optional this year. We are waiving the GMAT or the GRE. You may submit those, particularly if you're applying for a more technical program and you did very well in quant, for instance. You can certainly supply a GMAT or a GRE. That's something that we will look at, but we won't assess necessarily in the same manner as we used to because it's no longer a requirement. TOEFL, however, is a requirement. So we do look for either TOEFL, IELTS, the Pearsons, or Duolingo. Duolingo is new for us this year, but a lot of students really do enjoy just the ease of the Duolingo application. So whatever you decide to do, if you have scores that you have already, that's totally fine. You can send those unofficial scores to us. But the reason I wanted to briefly run through the application requirements is because that's a big part of where you end up. When we're looking at your application, we're not just looking at what kind of student you're going to be, but we're looking at your potential. We're trying to gauge how you're going to fit in terms of the world out there. This is why I'm also sharing our career outcomes. These are companies, a small subgroup of companies that our students have taken jobs at within the past year. So I want, when I'm looking at an application, to get a sense of what kind of student will this be on our campus, in our community, where will they land? How will an employer look at their application? This thought process is also one that we employ when we're looking at scholarships. So when we're looking at how much of an award we're going to give to students, we are gauging the entirety of their application. We are looking at that full potential. So normally when you show students a tuition bill, it can be quite jarring. These are not small numbers. But what I want you to take away from our conversation is that not all of our students have to pay a full tuition bill. We have scholarships available for our top applicants, And these are quite generous. Last year, nearly 50% of our students received some sort of scholarship. Those range from 5,000 all the way to full tuition. So one of the reasons I delved into sort of fit in terms of the programs, when we're looking at an MSF student, the one who has taken advantage of what their school has to offer academically, who has done very well academically, but then has a really strong video essay, has compelling internships, those students tend to rise to the top of the applicant pool. When we are making the decisions in our little admissions committee, we're including other people within that conversation. So it's not just the admissions person making the decision. There is also an academic component. There's either going to be a professor that teaches within that program, a program director. There's also the academic advisor. So the person who's going to be working with these students directly will weigh in. And we also have their career coach. So I oversee the business analytics program. I chair that selection committee. My colleagues are coming from throughout the university, throughout the business school, to look over these applications and to weigh in on the strength of the applicants. And the conversations that we have are not just limited to will they do well in the program. Many of our students do well in the program. It's part of the process of applying to business school. You kind of can sense if you're a good fit for an institution. That's not always our concern. What we spend a lot of time focusing on is what will their impact be once they're here? What will they take advantage of? Will they run a club? Will they join a club? Will they take advantage of the internship availabilities? Will they have a compelling story for employers? Will they potentially get a great job after they graduate? As we're gauging that, these are also conversations that we're having in the scholarship committee. So every student that is admitted to the program is considered automatically for scholarships. We don't ask you to fill out any additional paperwork. We don't ask you to submit any additional pieces of information. We are basically looking at the entirety of your application, and we're looking at that in the context of all of the other applicants. So once we've identified our top students that we're going to admit, we then look at them in the context of all of the other students that are being admitted to that program and determine how much scholarship can we afford to offer each applicant, if any. Going through the application, the stronger each component is, the more compelling that applicant becomes, and the more reasons you're giving the admissions committee to increase the amount of scholarship being offered. So if you were looking at various schools, I would also recommend looking at what scholarships they have available and what their processes are, because everyone is different. But for us, when we're looking at a student, when we're looking at the full application, we want to make sure that they're strong, they're compelling, and then in fairness, that they're just as strong when compared to other applicants within the pool. Finally, there are various assistantships, teaching assistantships, fellowships. All of our schools will have some variation on what we offer. Once you identify the schools that are fitting to you, make sure that you investigate what you would need to do in order to pursue those, but also, you're also going to be at these schools for 2 years. Many of our programs will have the opportunity for additional scholarships later on once you've had a semester or two in. So for instance, at Brandeis, there are scholarships that are specifically for second year students. So that's something that you'd also want to look into. Is there a way to increase that once you're on campus? Finally, there are loans available. Our student financial services website has a lot of those listed. Many of our students go through Empower, but there are other organizations that you can apply to independently that will also offset the cost of your education. So if you attended Emily's session yesterday, I know that she is fond of mentioning that this is an investment in your future. Financial aid is the institution's investment in your future, but ultimately we want to make sure that the students that are at the top of our applicant pool are also paying less because we want them to be in our community. And in order to stand out in that conversation, you should try to fix, polish, present your application in the best light possible. So I will open it up to questions there. Um, if there are any questions that you have either about the programs, I know that Naomi is probably going to ask any that were asked in the chat, but if there's anything that comes up, please feel free to type those in and we're happy to have a conversation about them.
What an amazing presentation, Mark. Like I said yesterday, I learned so much and I did it again with you. Great, very well explained. And I am happy to read any questions. So guys, if you would like to know something, just type it on the chat box and I will be passing that information to Mark. So Mark, we have one question from Lucas, and he says, what if it's been a long time since one's had the prerequisites courses and hasn't engaged in related activities to such subjects? Are there any possibilities for a leveling course?
There are, what I would recommend, and it depends, it varies by program. If Lucas is looking at our MBA program, he'll be fine because most of our MBA applicants are far enough removed from the academic arena that we don't put as much focus on their academics. We actually focus on their resume. We're looking at the trajectory of their career. We're looking at where they started and where they are now and what their future possibilities may be. But if you are looking at our specialized master's program, we typically like to see those courses within the last 5 years. So if it has been more than 5 years from those academic courses, what I would recommend is doing a Coursera, which is typically very low cost, just to brush up, but also to impress upon the admissions committee that you are serious about this and that you remember those things because look, you took a course and you did well. So it's, I think an added benefit of doing the Coursera is it refamiliarizes the student with the material, but it also helps assuage any of our concerns from the admissions point of view that this is someone who is clearly capable because they did well recently. So that's sort of how I would go about it. The other thing that I would mention is there are many low-cost ways to prove a skill set. So that's one of them, but it's definitely not the only one.
Great. And we also have a question from Juan. He has a question that I also wanted to ask you, Mark.
Okay.
So this is great for me. He says, Mark, you mentioned that that you get students from all over the world at Brandeis. And could you break this information down in terms of nationality and just get some sense of the international community that there is on campus?
Great question. So let me start by saying in the past few years, I feel like I need to have a conversation about pre-corona and post-corona or COVID or however else others are referring to it. Traditionally, we have been a very international business school. So it's not just amusingly in the name, but in the past, we have been about 85% international. So to break down the countries even further, most of our students hail from Asia. I think that's an easier one to believe because most people in the world live in Asia. But we have had students from as many as 40 different countries in the student body. China and India are typically very high on our list in terms of representation, but we've also had big cohorts from Colombia, we've had students from Panama, Mexico, Europe, so throughout, I know Europe's not a country, but from throughout Europe. So we've also had some very interesting students who tend to be my favorites because they're like paradoxes. One of our alums is actually Serbian, but he went to university in China. So he could speak fluent Mandarin and was absolutely not what you would expect by, judging a book by its cover. So I really do appreciate that level of internationalism. And one of the things that we actually think about when we're looking at applicants is how will they function in a place that is that diverse? Have they had any experiences in the past, or do they present as someone who is eagerly anticipating jumping into that? Because that excites us as well. So now that we are in a post-corona slash COVID world, this year's incoming class was 50% international across all of our programs. And most of our students were coming, if they are coming from outside the US, some of them have decided to come to the Waltham area, and we are offering hybrid courses. So some of them are in our dean's class that she's teaching. Others have decided to move to the US but stay in various different locations. Some have family. For instance, one of our students has family in DC, so he decided to just stay in Washington, DC, but take classes remotely. And he had already been in the US. So we have seen some variety there in terms of backgrounds as well. So even though it's not necessarily a passport related international background, sometimes it's just such a depth of experience that it really makes it a vibrant community. And Naomi and I were talking earlier about things that we miss, and that's one that I miss as well, is sort of the interaction and the strength of our community and just how vibrant it really is. Naomi, you're muted. Oh.
Yeah, sorry, I just realized that. Yeah, exactly. Being in a place with so many international students, you definitely learn a bit about everywhere in the world, right? So you get memories from all over the world just by being in one place.
Absolutely.
We have one more question from Juan. He says, are all of these programs on campus? And does the university offer any online masters, Mark?
So ordinarily, all of these programs used to be on campus. Right now, all of our programs can be done remotely, particularly since we have a lot of students who ran into issues trying to get their visas. Many offices were closed. I'm sure you can attest to how difficult that process was for many international students. So currently, all of our programs are being conducted remotely as well. We have not made the decision yet if this is something that will continue, but it is on the forefront of our dean's table conversations right now, is whether or not we will continue to offer our courses in an online format. I do think there's something that is lost when you're not interacting with your classmates. I don't know if that's something that we can pull together in the same manner. I would like to believe that folks are a little more understanding because of COVID in terms of schedules, and we have some students right now who are waking up very early in the morning because their courses are on a US time zone, although we are currently offering our courses as early as 8 in the morning local all the way up to about 8 p.m. So we're trying to make sure that even within the US, we have different time zones. So our West Coast students are still trying to function in an East Coast dominated world. So it is something, it's a consideration that we are making, but the conversation is less about whether or not we have the ability to do so and more about how strong the experience will be and how beneficial an online program can be in the same way, because we also want to be fair to both parties. If you are here full time, we want you to get such an amazing experience that it's worthwhile. And if you're doing the program remotely, we want to emulate the same opportunities as well. So that's sort of the hard balance that we have to strike.
It's very nice, and we are going to be following up with that to know if these courses are going to be offered online in the future.
Absolutely.
And we have another question from Lucas, Mark. He's wondering if the work experience that's required for the MBA program, does that have to be one in senior positions?
It does not. Great question. It doesn't have to be senior position. I think for the MBA in particular, we've seen a lot of students at various different stages of their career. There are some MBA students that have identified the perfect industry for them, for their skill set, and they know that in order to launch into the next stage of their career, there are things that they need to learn in an MBA program specifically. There are others who took a leap right out of undergrad, identified an industry they had some interest in, and then along the way fell out of love with that one because they found something else that was more aligned with their skills or with their interests. And they may want to use the MBA to pivot into a different career role. There are also some who take a break. We've had serial entrepreneurs, for instance, who they started their own company, things either worked out and now they sold it and they want to launch into something different, or there are others where they thought they were going to be successful and then they sadly learned that entrepreneurs also have to know how to do things that large businesses need to know how to do as well. So sometimes it's not just how good is the idea, but also what's the execution of your entire company going to look like if you don't have that skill set. So the reason I'm sharing all of these variations, Lucas, is because they're different students at different stages, but there's always a way for those students to learn from each other in a classroom setting. And they bring different backgrounds to the conversation that are so valid that it's beneficial for the program to have them all there. So the reason that there is no expectation that they'll be at the senior level is because we want to teach them how to be at the senior level. And if they were there, we want them to help also teach others because they're here for a reason. And that's usually to pivot into something they have less familiarity with. So the strength of the resume really does lie with how the career projection has been so far. Where were you? Where are you now? And where will you potentially be? Those are the questions that we're asking. Hopefully that answers your question.
Exactly. Yeah, he says thank you. And Juan also says, excellent, thank you very much.
Excellent.
So guys, I would love to keep reading your questions to Mark. So if you have any more inquiries, you would like to know something, there are no stupid questions. So you can also send them to me in the private mode if you don't want anyone to read it with your name. But feel free to type in your questions. And while you do that, I would like to pitch in our Education USA Fair that is happening this Saturday, the 19th. So September 19th, we are having our Education USA Fair from 9 a.m. till 12 p.m. So that's the Paraguayan time that we're gonna be on the fair. And I'm sending the link so you can register for it on the chat box. So if you are interested in learning more about universities in the US and you would like to know more about the programs that there are, we invite you and you are welcome to come and have this fair with us. As I mentioned before, it's going to be from 9 a.m. till 12 p.m. and you can register on the link that's on the chat. So you can copy and paste that link on your browser before we finish the Zoom call, because otherwise the link is gonna disappear somewhere on the internet. And yeah, so
I
if you
will
have any
also add
go
my
ahead, Mark.
email address is listed right here, but you can also email our general front desk, and we have a live chat on our website. So if you happen to be on our website, you can ask a live question there or ask it if we're not there, and it'll send to our emails via the wizardry of the internet.
Awesome. Great. So I don't see any more questions right now. And just a reminder for everyone here on the call, this webinar is part of a virtual series that we are having with Education USA and three Boston schools who have great graduate programs. So the webinar series is called Applying to Graduate School, and we started yesterday, like Mark mentioned, in the middle of his presentation with a lovely lady called Emily. She is from Suffolk University, and she talked about general application requirements for graduate school. So if any of you would like that recording, feel free to email us at Education USA, and we're gonna be sharing with you the recording. I will leave the email on the chat in a second. Today, we had these amazing and very, very interesting presentation with Mark. Thank you, Mark. With Brandeis University about the overview of the business schools academic and some scholarship offerings. And tomorrow, Wednesday, September 16th, we close this virtual series with Bentley University. They're going to be sharing with us some hidden tips and secrets on applying to graduate school. So if any of you are thinking of applying, join us tomorrow at 6 p.m. again, same as today. The link to register for tomorrow's webinar is on our link tree. Let me share that link here as well. And we're gonna be talking with Gordon from Bentley University. So that's that, and then you can ask for the recording on my from yesterday's webinar on my email. So that's also going here in the chat. I think that's right. Yes. Excellent. So there are no more questions, Mark. I think you explained everything very well. That's why no one has any more questions. And thank you very much for taking the time to be with us so far away in Paraguay. And we all appreciate the effort that you made to be here virtually. And thank you, Sandra, for helping us to set up the webinar as well. And thank you all for taking the time to be here with us. We hope to see you tomorrow again. And we hope you all apply to graduate programs in the US. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.